There were people like me who spent 13 years of our life working to create hatred.
Then you've got the life of Muhammad. Again, a bad man. A very bad man, it has to be said. Not a great role model, if you look at it.
Get ready to watch Douglas Murray engage in a heated debate with a Muslim opponent on whether Islam is a peaceful religion. In this confrontation, Douglas courageously discusses Prophet Muhammad, shedding light on his more aggressive traits.
There were people like me who spent 13 years of our life working to create hatred. I used to believe that Islam is not a religion of peace.
The man shown here is Majid Nawaz, a former radical Muslim who spent 13 years actively participating in jihad abroad. Jihad, a concept within Islamic teachings, aims to spread Islamic dominance through warfare. Currently, Majid identifies as a liberal Muslim.
In fact, I used to believe that Islam mandates war. I used to believe and propagate across the world, in more than 3 countries, that Islam mandates war and mandates the creation of a state that will have at its heart of its foreign policy, a policy to create conquest. I called it jihad. I believed Islam was not a religion of peace because I adopted an ideology at 16 years old and stuck with that until my imprisonment, and then after I was released from prison when I was 28 years old. I went on and took that message forward and helped establish the world's first counter-extremism think tank in the West. Then went into Pakistan to help establish the first nationwide counter-extremism movement in Pakistan. And as I said, we have 10,000 supporters before we've even launched of Muslims from Pakistan who are helping us to redefine the debate, who are not allowing the minority of extremists to hijack Islam, to monopolize its definition, and then define for us all.
Majid contradicts himself by saying extremism isn't linked to Islam. In other words, he suggests that extremists are not adhering to the Quran's teachings and thus distort Islam's true meaning. But isn't jihad mentioned in the Quran?
All religions should be religions of war in their minds, whether that's because they want to fight or because they're not believers in religions and they wish to challenge religion from that basis. And so I make an appeal to all of you tonight to help us redefine this debate.
Majid deftly avoids the idea that Islam is a violent religion, portraying it as open-minded like any other faith. However, we know this isn't true, given that Islamic culture often enforces very strict rules.
And so I appeal to all of you as my time runs out, there's much more to say, to vote to help us all to redefine this motion, to redefine this world, because only by refusing to accept the paradigms that we find imposed upon us, can we refute change. And that's exactly how the civil rights movement in America tackled this issue when they were faced with such situations in the past. Thank you for your patience and thank you for your time.
Majid uses the word paradigm to suggest that extremism is merely a misconception people have about Islam. However, Douglas Murray had a response to this.
All of you were doing earlier today. Majid finished his comments by talking about the importance of changing paradigms. I'm not sure this is about paradigms. I think it's about facts. Here are some facts in my newspaper earlier. The Times Square bomber, of course, a man just up the road from here who tried to kill thousands of people. Only, by the way, didn't manage it because he set the 24-hour timing device to 7 a.m. instead of 7 p.m. 1900 hours was what it was meant to be. If he had have got that bit right, thousands of New Yorkers would have died.
Douglas challenges Majid with facts, citing real-world incidents to support his arguments.
Earlier this year again, I see further in the paper 12 suspects arrested in France in a network trying to recruit people to go and fight American and other troops in Afghanistan. I turn to another page of the newspaper and the city I've just flown off from this morning, a Muslim London Underground worker who was, had written to his wife who was off to try to become a martyr for Allah.
Douglas continues presenting facts to argue that violence is inherent in Islam, pointing to the lives at risk, including suicide bombers willing to die for their faith.
Islam, the Quran and so on, is bad. It is bad. There is a lot of violence in it. And what's worse, the peaceful verses are superseded by the violent verses. The violent verses also, sadly...
Douglas takes a daring direction, identifying the Quran as the source of extremism. Prepare yourself for a powerful revelation, as this will seriously open your eyes.
Then you've got the life of Muhammad. Again, a bad man. a very bad man, it has to be said, not a great role model, if you look at it. Takes child brides, abuses a small girl, multiple wives, himself a warrior, himself a war criminal, himself beheads Jews.
Douglas fiercely criticizes Prophet Muhammad, revealing his violent actions, including rape and murder. He links the inherent violence in Islam to Muhammad's nature. Douglas shifts his focus from the Quran to Sharia, the laws governing Muslim conduct. He asserts that these laws are disastrous, taking a clear stance against their principles.
Then you've got the tradition of the Sharia. Again, not great peacefulness. Still no schools of Sharia that people in this hall would want to submit. The fact is that the people who are making the decisions in the religion, the people who are preaching in the religion, the heads of that religion, people like Sheikh Qaradawi, who broadcasts anti-Semitic, the most appalling filth.
Douglas thoroughly investigates every aspect, now directing his attention to Islamic mainstream media. He finds it deeply troubling how messages of hatred have fueled conflicts with other religions.
The problem is that Islam is an unstable component, as a religion, an unstable component. 1,000 years ago, the Mutazilites tried to reform the religion. They were wiped out. The fact is that Islam is many things, many, many things. But to say it's a religion of peace is nonsense.
Douglas examines the aggressive history of Islam from the 9th to 10th centuries, focusing on the Mutazilites. This Muslim group sought significant changes in Islamic ideology, but was reportedly killed and wiped out by their fellow Muslims. Douglas argues this internal violence supports the perception of Islam as a religion prone to aggression.
Billion Muslims. When you look at the mainstream, they're 90%. They're peaceful and fine. When you look at the politically radicalized, when you ask them, what do they fear most? They say Western domination and occupation. But when you ask mainstream Muslims what they fear, they say economic issues, unemployment. There's a clear difference. And so they're not, what we can determine from that is that it's not religion, because religiosity between the two is indistinguishable.
After Zeba Khan sugarcoats everything and blames it on modern views of Islam. Modern Islam apparently has no time for violence due to unemployment and other global issues. After admitting that there is a group of radicalized Muslims, which really means jihad, she loses the debate. Now, let's see what Douglas has to say about this.
Douglas-Murray.
But don't we get back to one of the core problems which you still haven't addressed, which is the life of Muhammad?
Douglas now grills Zeba and asks her to enlighten everyone on the teachings of the Prophet Muhammad, after informing everyone that the radicals are no way associated with Islam.
So what is it about this religion we're talking about tonight that you say is a religion of peace, that when people go back to the origins, they find a founder who was violent, teaching violence?
Douglas informs Zeba on who the Prophet Muhammad really is.
6 women who had gone to the Sharia courts because they were being physically abused by their husbands. They were persuaded to drop the cases because this should be a matter between a Muslim woman and her Muslim husband and the Sharia court. This should not be a matter for the police in Great Britain in 2008.
Furthermore, Douglas-Murray argues that Islam's treatment of women's issues exemplifies its inherent violence. He is frustrated by how Sharia laws subordinate women, often dismissing serious cases like rape and domestic violence as minor household matters. Conversely, Majid offers a different perspective.
Islam has never had a clergy. It's never had a pope. And so when you try and institute Sharia courts as law, the question arises, whose Sharia do you follow? Now that's an internal debate that's going on and raging, and that I'm part of in Pakistan, for example, because there isn't one version of Sharia.
However, Majid lacks a strong rebuttal to Douglas's critique of Sharia laws. Surprisingly, he acknowledges issues within the Sharia law structure. It is evident in this debate that Douglas has the upper hand.
Come on, this only happens with Islam. There is no other major faith in the world
true,
today
Douglas,
where it is the case that people are fearful of addressing religion because they're afraid they'll be killed. It's only Islam.
Douglas contends that Islam fosters violence by instilling fear in its followers. He claims that the religion's authoritarian nature means any criticism can lead to execution.
We're saying there's a reason.
I'm afraid of being killed by apostates.
Yes,
and many of you who came here tonight came under unusual circumstances. I'm not in government. I'm not a powerful person. I am a citizen.
Interestingly, Ayn Ali, Douglas's partner and an ex-Muslim, concurs with his views, expressing her own fear of being killed, which she believes highlights Islam's harshness. She notes that her humble background heightens her sense of vulnerability. Meanwhile, Majid has a different take on this matter.
And I've got to say one last thing. I've got to say one last thing. The thing is, you're not the only one on this panel. I have an Al-Qaeda death threat on my head too, because I'm saying what I'm saying.
Majid finds himself in the same situation as Ayn Ali, having also received death threats. Doesn't this highlight the darker aspects of Islam?
And what I'm saying is that, and I've been attacked in Pakistan physically for saying this, what I'm saying is, enough to extremism, enough to terrorism.
Now, Majid just proves Douglas's point that Islam is a violent religion.
Sure. I mean, one of the points about this area is everyone gets death threats. I mean, it's just an unfortunate thing about this debate.
I think Sheba and I are going to leave.
I mean, as I say again, I think it speaks for itself. I hope no one threatens a chair.
Douglas commends Majid for his honesty in acknowledging Islam's violent aspects, hoping that he won't face backlash for his stance. This shows Douglas's genuine concern for Majid's safety despite their differing views. This proves what a genuine man Douglas is. This concludes today's video. Please subscribe, like, and share your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching.